Hello everyone, my name is Havian and today I'll be talking to you about Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet. During the creation of the Sword Art Online games, the developers looked towards popular games for inspiration. Hollow Fragment was influenced by Final Fantasy XI, Lost Song and Excel World vs Sword Art Online seem to have influences from Phantasy Star Online 2, and Hollow Realization took influence from Final Fantasy XIV. But for Fatal Bullet, according to a discussion that various news outlets were invited to at TGS, the producers said that when developing the gameplay, the team referenced games like The Division and Destiny, and he's also a fan of shooters himself. When the game was first revealed, it was compared to Freedom Wars, and the similarities with that game are pretty clear to a lot of people, but The Division and Destiny influences may not be so obvious. So based on all this pre-release gameplay we've seen for Fatal Bullet, let's see if you can find out where these influences lie. I played Destiny 1 in the past, and I'm sure that's the game the developers took reference from, since Fatal Bullet's been in development for about 3 years. But any gameplay you will see in this video that looks like Destiny will be from Destiny 2. I also re-downloaded The Division, since I haven't really played that game in a long time. I thought it would be a good idea to play it again and refresh my memory before getting into a video like this. But considering The Division is a visually realistic third-person shooter, and Destiny is a sci-fi first-person shooter, I guess my best guess is they look towards these games because they were both loot-focused shooters that were very popular at the time. Not much has been said about the loot systems in Fatal Bullet, but from the information that has been released so far, they're promising a massive loot system, and based on what we've seen so far, I have a vague idea of the foundation that's been set. In all the gameplay videos I've seen, loot seems to drop frequently at what appears to be different rarity tiers. The loot containers in Fatal Bullet look very similar to the engrams in Destiny. In Destiny, one of the things that engrams contained was the loot that drops from defeated enemies. When collected, some of these will give you the equipment instantly, and others would have their contents hidden. These sealed engrams would need to be taken back to town for appraisal so you could obtain the loot that was inside. From what we've seen of the Fatal Bullet gameplay, it seems like you get equipment, bullets and materials from enemies, but there does seem to be times where unappraised items also drop. At this point, we haven't really seen what you can do within the town, but I'd assume that unappraised items can be taken back to town for appraisal. In Fatal Bullet, you can easily check what type of loot you've obtained by looking at the chat log. Things in white text seem to be ammo and common drops, green seems to be uncommon drops, blue seems to be rare, and orange I'll assume is legendary based on what we've seen so far. I haven't seen any purple or epic tier items that you'd usually see in a lot of loot games, but maybe this game has its own set of rarity tiers. At the very least, based on the previous trailer, we know that common items are white and rare items are blue. I also mentioned in a previous video that clothing items seem to have rarities attached to them, and I wondered if this meant that clothing would drop from enemies. Seeing as the developers took influence from The Division, I wouldn't be so surprised if that was the case. In The Division, enemies have a chance to drop clothing that you can equip to change the appearance of your character. Personally, I hope that enemies do drop cosmetic items in Fatal Bullet, because the more loot for me to hunt, the better. In the chat log, there are also some things that appear in red text, and as of right now, I can't really guess what those would be. Sometimes ammo shows up in red, sometimes materials, and sometimes equipment. At first I assumed it was because the inventory was full on a specific item, but I do need to see a little bit more of the game before I know for sure. On the surface, the game seems to have a decent foundation for its loot, but we still need to see how item appraisal works, and if there are any randomized stats or effects that can appear on equipment. So the one thing that will keep me interested for a long time is a good loot system, so I'm hoping that the one in this game isn't shallow. But there are a few other ways that this game could be influenced by Destiny or The Division. Just like in those games, in Fatal Bullet it seems like you have a selection of skills that you can set in your loadout. Some of these seem to be based on your weapon type, but gadgets seem to be customizable character-based skills. You can select from recovery abilities like first aid kits and anti-ailment kits, or more offensive skills like grenades or an ignition knife that you can throw to set enemies on fire. Another thing that the developers could have taken a look at are strikes in Destiny and missions in The Division, since they seem to be very similar to the dungeons in Fatal Bullet. So far we've only seen one very basic dungeon, but in dungeons you fight your way through multiple areas filled with enemies and various obstacles so that you can make it to the end boss for loot. The dungeon that we've seen so far may be a very early one, or maybe it's one that's there for demo purposes, but at the moment it does look pretty empty and very basic. In the final game, I hope there are a variety of minor dungeons that you can enter while exploring the world, along with some larger scale dungeons that have multiple difficulty levels that can be done on your own or with other people in multiplayer. If there are different difficulty levels, then hopefully there are unique rewards for the people that are willing to take on the extra level of challenge. For Fatal Bullet to have a long lifespan, the game needs an enjoyable progression system and gameplay loop. It felt like it was far too easy to skip past chunks of endgame content by accident in some of the previous games, and a lot of the equipment that you could get didn't really feel very satisfying to earn. So I am hoping that Fatal Bullet does it a lot better. But most of the things I've mentioned in this video were already in some of the previous games in one form or another. I think the main reason they looked towards Destiny and The Division is because they wanted to see what people accepted as the baseline for multiplayer loot-based shooters. I'm hoping they took those influences and tried to find a way to improve on them in their own way, rather than just straight copying them. There's still a lot of things we need to find out about this game, but with the upcoming Dengeki Festival we should start to get much more detailed information, so expect to see that very soon. I've mentioned it before, but the game will be releasing in early 2018 on PlayStation 4, Xbox One and on PC. It will have fully customizable characters, a full storyline, co-op multiplayer and 4 vs 4 PvP modes. And hey, if you can think of any other ways the game could be influenced by Destiny, Division or any other game, feel free to let me know in the comments. I've even seen some places calling it Anime Borderlands. But that's all the information I have for you now. But as always, when I come across new information, I will be sure to pass it on to you. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe and share it if you want to see more. If you want to view my live streams, then follow me on Twitch. And if you want to stay up to date with everything I'm doing, then be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. The links to those are in the description. I'll be making some new videos very soon, but until I make those videos, I will see you all later.